to the Perfectionism and Braving the Wilderness live stream. It's so wonderful to have you here. I am now live from a new location, from my new apartment in Tulum in Mexico. So I just came here and I'm so excited to be running this first live stream from here in my apartment. And today we're talking again perfectionism and braving the wilderness. And I'm gonna have Briona come on as well, and we're gonna be talking about this topic together. So you might be wondering, okay, so what is this going to be all about? What is braving the wilderness? What does that even mean? And braving the wilderness, we're going to touch upon all of what that means. But basically, the intention of this live stream is for us to talk about braving, which is an acronym that Brené Brown has kind of talked about, and it's boundaries, reliability, accountability, volt, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. And then facing the wilderness is really just about facing the unknown, right? Facing the unseen, the things that we probably have some fear around, right? And facing the wilderness is also about truly, belonging so fully to yourself and your bloomer, the light within you, right? So that you're willing to stand alone at times as well. To stand alone in the face of the wilderness and really just also accept that the journey can be messy. It can be very often filled with chaos, and it can be, very much, uncontrollable as well. So we're going to talk about all of this and more. And for those of you who have been attending before, I'm basically running these live streams now on perfectionism and different topics. We've already talked about perfectionism and shadow work, perfectionism and manning up, reinvention, dance, we talked about last week. And this one is on braving the wilderness. And then we're gonna do one on breath work, worthiness, creativity, hypnosis, wealth, starseed ascension, friendships, and beyond. So stay tuned for that. And firstly, just to introduce myself, if you're new here, so great to connect with you. Lovely to have you all on here. I'm basically a coach and a light worker who basically help high performers, so entrepreneurs and coaches, and also people who have that little seed within them and that calling to contribute beyond themselves, but feel like there is some sort of perfectionism, whether that be procrastination or overworking yourself or distracting yourself with some other thing that you're working on that is not really in alignment with your truth and what you really would like to do, right? And I'm helping you being able to overcome that perfectionism, to create that life and business of freedom for yourself, to live where you want, whenever you want, with whomever you want, and really define freedom on your own terms without the shoulds and the have-tos and all of these things, right? So I basically then offer also the Bloom Beyond Tribe. So you can go to the link in bio to come into the tribe, which is a free community, a WhatsApp group really, and also a platform which you can use to learn more about perfectionism and the subconscious mind, which has really transformed my life. And I just want to share that with you. And then also from there, you can join the Bloom Beyond Perfectionism program and the Bloom Beyond Mastermind as well, which we're going to have the first mastermind in January, actually, and I'm so excited for it. It's going to be here in Tulum, and I already have 4 people that's going to join, and it might be that more people will join as well, because we're doing 1-year transformations together in overcoming perfectionism in life and business. So you can find out so much more about that and more in the link in bio. Also, I offer one-on-one coaching, basically just like one-on-one sessions if you'd be interested in that, because that's a limited time offer now. So with that being said, thanks for listening. And what we will cover today is braving the wilderness. We'll talk about the healing power of nature and being in nature in the wilderness, like literally the wilderness. But also beyond that, it's the actual like imaginative wilderness that we might face when we want to do something out of the norm, out of the ordinary that we haven't done before, because that can be a wilderness as well, right? So we're going to talk about braving and the wilderness and all of this. So I'm so excited to have Briona come on now, and we're going to talk about this together. And Briona and I, we met actually through Instagram it was the first time I was here in Tulum a couple of months ago, actually. And then we just started chatting. And I know she's wanting to come to Norway, where I'm from, and to that side of the world. And I'm going over here to like this side of the world. So it's kind of funny. So I'm so excited to have her come on now so we can, chat a little bit together on this. Let's waiting for her to come on. Hello, sister.
Hey, love.
Hi. So great to see you. How
You
are
too.
you?
I'm good. My ears were perking when you were talking about Norway, so.
Yeah, I know. You're so welcome to come whenever I'm back over there. I just moved from there.
Oh,
Where did you just stay? Because I know that you've been traveling, right?
I was just in Ireland, so not too far. I felt Norway calling me when I was there. But
You did?
yeah, I was in Ireland for a week. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And Ireland has some, I would say, similarities to Norway as well, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. Yeah. And what did you do
Yeah.
there? Did you do some sort of like shamanic training or something?
hmm Yeah, I've been in
Exciting.
a shamanic apprenticeship for almost a year now, and
Yes.
we did official training on the grounds, the land, with the spirits there as well. hmm
Aha. Yeah, that like brings me over to like, how is it that you are serving and who is it that you're serving? And in what way is it that you are fascinated by the wilderness, both the real wilderness and also the imaginative wilderness?
Well, that's a deep part of my medicine. I would say that's also
Mm,
just deeply embedded in the shamanic work, even before I was officially on the shamanic path. But in essence, it's just
mm,
a really it's both comfortability but also pushing our own comfort zone when it comes to stepping into, as you mentioned, the unknown, stepping
mm.
into the magic in which the land, the animals, pieces of our world which hold really ancient wisdom. And
Yes.
yeah, and definitely some of the darker parts, right, too, because specifically the
Mm,
shamanic path, but in the wilderness, you need to accept that it isn't just love and light there where you're going on that path. There is um, uh, some darker parts of ourself which get revealed within that, and a lot of beauty
mm.
come from that too when we fully meet it where it's at. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And also very true that, when you're braving the wilderness, so to speak, in whatever form that is, there's some shadow parts that can come up and needs to be transformed in order for us to like hold more light in our light bodies and be able to serve in our true, authentic way, which is
hmm
where we're showing up as ourselves. So I'm
hmm
really curious to know for you, like, how has that journey been for you specifically?
Mm. Well, I would like to say that it's part of my purpose. So,
Yes.
uh, some days that feels really natural, but other days, like I mentioned, I am meeting myself outside of my comfort zone. But I'd say overall, just really exciting because it's never the same each day.
Mm.
The amount of times in which you really are open to truly transforming on a physical, emotional, and spiritual level is very often. If you're going out and
Mm.
braving the wilderness frequently, or if that's part of your path, you
Mm.
are one who every month can be a totally different person. so,
Yeah.
so it's been interesting, but it's been
Mm.
beautiful. And again, I just meet all these different facets of myself and different facets of the people I meet in that experience
Mm.
too. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it's fascinating how when you like do that work for yourself and
Hmm.
you're braving the wilderness over and over and over again, maybe in different areas of your life, you're facing the unknown in different areas of your life,
Hmm.
you begin seeing that that also manifests in the physical, that you
Hmm.
begin having different connections come into your life that you didn't have before, or
Hmm.
that you have different animals, let's say, that you're attracted to, like with you, you're being so interested in wolves, right? I've
Hmm.
found, and also involving a lot of animal medicine into your teachings and your healing methodologies.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's really fascinating too. That's something that we could also talk about because I know the healing power of animals as well, for
Yeah.
sure. Now, when we're talking about braving the wilderness, just to further like actually explain what this is as well, I've been looking at one of Brene Brown's books. And Brene Brown is a researcher, for those who don't know, on shame and vulnerability and perfectionism and a lot of the things that we might not want to face or talk about, but are
Hmm.
deeply valuable to know what this is so that when we grow through our life and experience, we actually dare to face those feelings and those emotions that we might not want to face or
Hmm.
be have a resistance to facing. And basically braving, what she says that is you then have boundaries, reliability, accountability, volt, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. And basically, she says that being ourselves means sometimes having to find the courage to stand alone, right? And she says that belonging so fully to yourself means that you're willing to stand alone in the wilderness, right? An untamed, unpredictable place of solitude and searching, she says. It is a place as dangerous as it is breathtaking, a place as sought after as it is feared. So, a lot of people seek after braving the wilderness and doing something new or creating novelty in their lives or basically shifting things up in which they feel is out of alignment, but might not do it because
Hmm.
there's fear there, there's perfectionism there, there's all sorts of things and resistance. That's really what perfectionism is. It's just resistance, it's manifesting in the body. And then you're letting that hold you back, right? And she says that the wilderness can often feel unholy because we can't control it, or what people think about our choice of whether to venture into the vastness or not. But it turns out to be the place of true belonging, and it's the bravest and most sacred place that you'll ever stand. And
Hmm.
all of the different components of braving, right? Boundaries, reliability, accountability, volt, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. Um, I think that those together, in and of themselves, each and every single one of those, it takes a certain amount of awareness and willingness to face these things and incorporate them into your life to be able to face the wilderness.
Hmm.
So basically, by saying what braving the wilderness is based on what she says it is, let's start with, let's say, boundaries, which is the B of braving. Setting boundaries is making clear what is okay and what's not okay and why. So when you're then facing the wilderness, when you're facing the unknown in your life and you coaching others as well, in what way do you feel boundaries is crucial?
Hmm. Well, so many places. But
Yes.
boundaries are what keep you protected.
Yeah.
Protected
Mm.
protection is huge because when
Mm.
you are braving the wilderness, when you're facing and willing to take off your mask and get really
Mm.
naked and vulnerable with yourself, having that layer of protection within your nervous system, within your energy field is really important because it is your root.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And in order to transform, we have to strip, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if we're going to truly strip and get to that, you need to have a solid base in
Yeah.
order to grow and plant new seeds. So I'd say the biggest thing there is just protecting yourself, so that you can roar louder, so that you can really go to the depths that you are desiring to go.
Mm. For sure. And it's fascinating that you're saying root, that it's necessary to have boundaries in order to root, in order to sow your seeds. It very much aligns with the Bloom and Perfectionism program, which is basically cut into wilt, fall, root, rise, bloom. So when you're a perfectionist, you're basically wilting, right?
Mm,
You're wilting because you're not really in alignment with your soul or what the path in which you feel like, and so there's resistance, so you're wilting. And then you can fall when you basically fall when you realize that that is what's happening. You can literally have like things fall out of your life, or you strip things away that no longer serves you,
mm,
because you're realizing that in order to bloom beyond perfectionism, there might be things, people, places, things that's no longer in alignment, because you come more deeply in contact with yourself, right?
mhm,
And so when you're rooting, the philosophy that I talk about is it's important to first and foremost know thyself. So when you know thyself, your values, what you stand for, right? Then it's easier to both create something and add value. And it's also easier to enjoy your life. And also, it's easier to attract and be around other people that match up with the values that you have, or the types of ways that you see the world, or basically surround yourself with people like that. Anchor
mhm.
yourself and take root. And then comes the boundaries. So when you then have that kind of foundation, it's then that the boundaries is really necessary to ensure your sense of stability. And Brené Brown talks about boundaries as being not walls, but they're basically there to ensure your growth. That's really what they are. And not just your growth, because they're not meant to be selfish or egocentric, but boundaries serve also everyone else around you, because
Mhm.
you're transparent and you're honest and you're clear about what's okay and what's not okay. Where are the boundaries, and how do you set them? How do you communicate them? Do you even enforce them? Because boundaries are not boundaries if they're not being enforced, if there's no consequences for them. Which is a big thing for a lot of people pleasers, because it's like it's easy to like set the boundaries, communicate the boundaries, but then when someone like steps over them repeatedly, it's like easy to like just lean into it and just okay, I'm just gonna, just one more time, and then you loosen up the boundaries. But that is really the test.
Mhm.
So the boundaries are crucial in order to take root in your life, for sure. Now, reliability is the next one in the braving, the acronym. And reliability says that you do what you say you will do. At work, this means staying aware of your competencies and limitations so that you don't overcompromise and are able to deliver on commitments and balance competing priorities. So, reliability, is that something that you have incorporated into your life and your journey as you have grown more in contact with yourself and daring to brave into the unknown?
Yeah, I feel like in a way, in order to instill trust within myself and
Hmm.
others, especially as someone who leads others into the wilderness.
Yeah.
But the reliability also needs to be adaptable and flexible because within the wilderness, like you mentioned, unknowns happen.
Mm.
So you might
Mm.
set an initial intention, and what it looks like might be different, and that is what you need to be okay with to continue to connect to your intention, but be open
Mm.
to how that unfolds. I think that is being in the most authentic, but also reliable and trusting version of yourself. And when it comes to
Mm.
the root, as we were just talking about, I think that just strengthens it. So you're able to hold
Mm.
yourself and others when things happen as they do. Hmm.
Yeah, because they do happen. The
Hmm.
chaos inevitably is part of reality, is part of
Hmm.
life, and it's a gift if
Yep.
we begin seeing it like that. It's like when things are falling apart, that's an opportunity to come into greater integrity with yourself as well,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
greater reliability on yourself and on others, and
Mm-hmm.
allowing yourself to be supported. That's a big thing with boundaries too. It's like you can set boundaries and still allow yourself to be supported in them. Like I think that boundaries is crucial to allow for support to happen, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Because
Yep.
then you have more clear structures in place and people know how they can support you, how they
Mm-hmm.
can be reliable for you. And I listened to this podcast yesterday where they talked about how we all really have a calling and a desire to rely upon and be relied upon. That we all really desire to support others. And sometimes it's harder to allow ourselves to be supported and just go the independent path and do our own thing rather than opening your field up and allowing yourself to collaborate, be supported, and thrive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that is reliability. And then we have accountability. So basically, then you own your mistakes, you apologize, and you make amends. So you own your mistakes, right? That is you take an accountability. And even like mistake, I think that's an interesting word because like how do you define a mistake? You know,
Mm-hmm.
because it
Mm-hmm.
can be you can look at it as a mistake or you can look at it as a learning process or
Mm-hmm.
as a part of the journey. But even apologizing is something too that I think you can overly apologize. You can apologize because you think that you should apologize, and can become a form of people pleasing. Yet, taking that accountability sometimes is a way to honor yourself and your stay in integrity with your world too, with your word as well,
Mm-hmm.
with others. So, what comes up for you when we say accountability as part of braving the wilderness?
Mm-hmm. For one, within the chaos, a lot of emotions can come up. So when I think accountability, it's being accountable for those, not
Mm-hmm.
allowing the
Yeah.
fear or where you might spiral,
Mm.
become a tornado, which impacts others.
Mm.
And also what came from for me is being in check of your ego.
Yeah.
Because when we again get raw, get real, when we're in vulnerable places like the wilderness, um,
Mm.
we can instinctually want to go back to our old ways and cling to old identities which weren't us. So being really clear,
Yeah.
again, connecting to that original intention of
Yes.
how you choose to move, walk, talk, that is what comes up for me accountability
Mm.
wise, and having that really be in alignment with your soul rather than your past self or ego, which initially aren't meant to be
Wow.
on this journey. Yeah.
That is powerful. Yes. Taking accountability for your intention that you set for yourself
Mm-hmm.
instead of just falling back into the older path or the older version of yourself or the version of yourself or the identity that you previously had in the past. Whereas instead, we can choose to stay accountable to ourselves. And that actually takes bravery to repeating that. Because here's the thing, you're not meant to just float on this like stream always, and that is just meant to be easy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when you're reinventing yourself or when you're starting a new journey or going into new relationship dynamics or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or starting a new career path or whatever. So it takes accountability whenever you feel that pull of the subconscious, the automatic mind and the habitual mind to be like, oh, that's the subconscious wanting to
Mm-hmm.
like pull me into that version of me that I was in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And from that place, you can begin to cultivate a greater relationship with yourself and honor yourself over and over in that process. So thanks for mentioning that. That is very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Volt, which I find interesting. So it says you don't share information or experiences that are not yours to share. I need to know that my confidences are kept and that you're not sharing with me any information about other people that should be confidential.
Mm.
So in Braving the Wilderness, how do you think that Volt really is crucial to practice?
Mm.
Mm.
Well, as that's coming up, again, wow, it's interesting because all these things are just playing off of what I just spoke about. But like I
Yes.
mentioned, uh, well, coming into truth of, am I the person who I actually say I am? Do I talk the way I know I'm meant to talk? And like I said, walking the walk.
Mm.
So Volt is coming up for me when I think of that in her explanation, but
Mm.
I think
Mm.
Volt does have many other explanations than what is written there. Um,
Absolutely. Mm.
so it's really up to what that means for the person. But if we're talking in terms of communication, I would
Mm.
say, um, and again, when there's space, we want to fill the space. The universe doesn't like voids either. So I understand,
Yeah,
but what are we filling the space with? Is it our true self that's coming forward in essence?
exactly. And also, I think this is really powerful what's coming through. I think that when you're growing and evolving and shifting and changing from, let's say, one identity and one version of yourself into this other version of yourself, there's more space there in between because you're
Mm-hmm.
then obviously letting go of certain aspects of yourself or certain behaviors and thought patterns, etc. That void comes up. And so in relation to other people, then it might be harder for you to define yourself or
Mm-hmm.
stand for something or know what to say or what to speak about, or you might find it harder to relate with other people. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's when sometimes you might even cause judgment on your past version of yourself. And in relationship with others, you might be more easily triggered by others if they
Mm-hmm.
trigger past versions of you that you now have judgment for because you haven't integrated that version of yourself yet, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is where you can begin to like cast judgment on that, and might even feel more compelled to like judge or come up with rumors or these types of things, and talk about others
Mm-hmm.
more than step into the relationship with yourself, right? And
Mm-hmm.
own that you are in that process of shifting and changing. So it's being able to like just observe that and remember that in relationships, Volt is really valuable. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like when someone tells you something, right? It's like that's a gift that they're giving you because that's them opening their aura, their field, their love, their heart to you and offering
Mm-hmm.
something to you for you because they respect you,
Right.
probably for
Right.
sharing it. So then it's like, okay, thank you so much for sharing that. And
Mm-hmm.
then that is not yours to share further from there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that process of also, I think, with blooming brand perfectionism, just forgiving yourself if you've done that in the past. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
most people have in their journeys, right? To some
Mm-hmm.
extent. But it comes to a point where you no longer have that need or that desire to do so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you're so much reinventing yourself all the time and shedding and releasing
Yeah.
that you don't have energy to it.
Yeah. And also sometimes holding space is just the best option. Um,
Mm,
you don't always
yes.
need to share. You don't always need to have your input. Sometimes within that, if people are coming to you,
Mm,
being just a space holder is really important. Knowing when to do nothing, say nothing, and just um,
listen.
mm-hmm, yeah,
Listen and mirror. And you
mm-hmm,
can do that to the degree that you've done that for yourself.
mm-hmm,
So if you've taken time in your own space, in your own energy, in your own silence, and listened to yourself, it's much more easy to just stay aware and open to what everyone else is inputting,
mm-hmm,
kind of, without the need to fix or solve. Oftentimes, if you might have the need to fix or solve someone else's problems, that's a direct correlation to you might wanting to do that within yourself,
mm-hmm,
fixing things within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an other oriented perfectionism of sorts, right? That was Volt, and then integrity. So choosing courage over comfort, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy, and practicing your values, not just professing them. Yeah, so that kind of goes in relation to reliability, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for sure, in facing the wilderness and the unknown, you are being invited to choose the courage over the comfort. But what comes up for you then when we're talking about this?
For me, when you are deciding to go on that path, you are undoubtedly choosing to step into the role of the warrior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to stepping into that role, you need to be integral with stepping into that role, not
Yeah.
backing down, not taking the easy way out, right? Like warrior up, courage up, get, again, step into the power of what
Mm.
your bravery can really serve.
Mm.
So it's
Mm.
really a calling into a role of an aspect of yourself, which we all have,
Mm-hmm.
but has been judged or remained quiet or has some patriarchal twist on it. So it's being
Mm-hmm.
integral of also what that could mean for you. But when I think of integrity and the aspects of integrity that are calling to us, I always think of the warrior in that sense. And that part of us
Yeah.
is really needed when we brave the wilderness and also for others too.
Mm. And the warrior archetype can manifest in
Mm-hmm.
different ways and look different as well. And there's no
Mm-hmm.
real definition of what a warrior is meant to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Whether, yeah, what that is really. It really comes down to an energy. It's just an energetic approach that you have and a sense of commitment. I think that when I think of integrity, it's like, do you have commitment to your word? When you
Mm-hmm.
say something, do you follow through with it? And also recognize in relationship to others, if you find yourself judging others or having resistance to or feeling contracted to when someone says something and they don't follow through with it, that typically is because you value integrity yourself. So if you value that integrity yourself, it's up to you to speak that out loud, that I really value integrity. I would have really appreciated if we can, when we say something, that we can follow through with it and honor each other's words to create deeper connection and come into greater union together, right? So that sense of integrity is crucial, and choosing that courage over comfort, that is a journey. And that's just a constant invitation to do over and over and over again in different areas of your life. And to
Mm-hmm.
really just be conscious of like, what is comfort? What do I find comfortable in my life right now? If you stay in that comfort for too long, because you're human, you're going to find some resistance to it eventually. And
Mm-hmm.
you will automatically sometimes want to break out of it. Whilst other times you might get addicted to it and
Mm-hmm.
find it so comfy and so familiar and so automatic and habitual that it's like, okay, just let's go for it. And for me, I think because I know myself, I'm one of those who just like, if I get a calling to do something or go somewhere or change something, I just do it, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
very like sacral chakra, like activated, like just go for it, just make the decision, go for it. Whereas others have other forms of strategies as far as decision making. So identifying that is crucial. Yeah. This Ascended Trader says integrity in all of life is so key to expansion. Yes. Yeah. I would love to hear from you as well, the Ascended Trader. I know you're right. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that you would say have been the greatest gift of integrity in your life? And how has it, allowed you to expand in your journey and in your life? I'd love to hear. And also with you, Brianna, what do you think as far as that being a key to your expansion? In what way?
Mm. Well, as you mentioned, knowing yourself.
Yeah.
I simple. Knowing yourself, knowing yourself, knowing yourself. And when you don't feel like you're knowing yourself, taking the time sometimes away to define that so that you can be in integrity. It's really hard to be in integrity when you don't have, where you haven't fully gone through
Yeah.
what are my values? What am I here for right now? How can I best serve myself and others? And so that's just a constant because we're evolving, we're
Seasonal.
changing. Yeah, it's constant. So it's the constant question of, do I really know myself and am I leading with that? Or am
Yeah.
I just letting other people or other things define that for me? Then I know I'm out of integrity. But it's huge. Yeah, it's the key because knowing yourself is the key, right?
Yeah. And like knowing thyself. That, yeah, it's a
Mhm.
part of the root season in my program, right? And knowing thyself again is a kind of cyclical kind of thing that you're
Mhm.
invited to do, and it's a daily thing too. It's not just like yearly or every decade.
Mhm.
It's something that you're invited to every single day that you meet yourself in the mirror. It's like,
Yeah, every
okay, so
decision you make.
today, yeah, with every decision I make, am I staying in integral with my value here? And your values can differ from thing to thing, from aspect to aspect, from relationship to relationship,
Mhm.
right? And what it is that your intention is. So I think that having integrity is something that's easier to follow through on once you know your intention overall, your overarching intention. So you have your values, the soil, and the intention, which is the vision, the idea that you have, the image in your mind, because
Mhm.
then you have that sense of like bond, the 2 points in which can connect through integrity and following through intentionally with your word without being too harsh with yourself along the process, but
Mhm.
giving yourself compassion.
Mhm.
Beautiful. And then we have non-judgment. So it says I can ask for what I need and you can ask for what you need. We can talk about how we feel without judgment. So in that saying, in the process of braving the wilderness and facing the unknown, how is non judgment relevant for you when you step into that courageous path?
Mm. Well, my favorite teachers for this are the animals and nature.
Yes.
Um, it's being authentic. It's it's also understanding our connection with everything and also being gentle to the fact that, again, like I said, while we're all exploring our changes and our own evolution, um, being gentle to the fact that that can look different for everyone and how they express it and with
Yeah.
ourselves. So not allow that to change us again, taking us out of integrity for whatever reason that is by deeply knowing ourselves, but being keen to the truth that uh, as I'm also still knowing myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Absolutely. And when I think of non judgment too, I think of actually that the goal or the aim shouldn't be to not judge. Because here's the thing, if you go to a restaurant or go someplace new, right, and you're going to eat something, what do? You get a menu and you judge what you're going to eat, right? You have different options in which you can judge from in order to make a decision. So the the shame can come in with perfectionism when you begin judging yourself, right? When you begin judging yourself for not making the right decision or for making a decision and making it wrong or something like that, right? So it's more so the relationship that you have with your sense of judgment. Are you able to tune it down at times? Like, are you able to just like recognize, am I being overly judgmental here towards someone? And also, let's be curious. Am I feeling triggered about this? That's interesting. Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper here. Where might that stem from? Do I have an experience in the past that reminds me of this? Okay, that's an invitation to basically give myself compassion for that, and that's just another learning process. Or it's an invitation from the universe or whatnot as well to either choose differently than you did in the past or choose the same. It's a choice point. So it's like it's a point where you get to choose. I choose to make a decision here without too much judgment on myself. Knowing
Mm-hmm.
that regardless of what decision I make, I know within myself that my intention is good. My intention is pure. My intention is loving. And I love myself regardless of the outcome here,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that loving awareness is so, so, so crucial there. And that is a big part of blooming beyond perfectionism, observing your judgment. Because when you no longer have that harsh judgment, or you're able to observe it rather, you're able to go through and grow through life without letting that judgment steer you off path or create too much resistance in you. So that's really, really powerful, I find, to create that. And also recognize that I actually talked about this with a friend of mine recently, about emotions, and judgment can be some sort of like emotion, or it can trigger further emotions. It's like you can actually begin recognizing if that judgment is something that attaches to you or if it's just there as a visitor. And
Mm.
you can begin seeing it more as a visitor and emotions like visitors rather than permanent.
Mm.
So that was non-judgment. And then we have generosity as well. So that's the last one as far as the braving is concerned. So that is extending the most generous interpretation to the intentions, words, and actions of others. Now, when you are stepping onto this path of bravery beyond perfectionism, how do you find that generosity plays out in the relationship with yourself, being generous with yourself and generous with others?
Mm. Well, when you walk into the wilderness, it's always asking you, show me more of yourself. I know you're
Mm,
I know you're being I know you're hiding a little bit. Like I know you're trying to protect yourself, of
mm,
course, because it can be scary. But show me more of yourself. There is more of you that is here, but I'm just not seeing it, or you're not sharing it, or whatever they're saying and how they say it. So
mm,
it is giving, it's noticing what parts of you can be giving more to, both
mhm.
with yourself, but with others. Um, I common phrases where are we playing small, but in terms of generosity, because that term really comes from the generous parts of us, because we have way more to give ourselves and to others than we realize. Um,
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
yeah, and I feel like nature is a really beautiful reflector of that because
Yes.
she's not hiding any part of herself. It's all of her
Mm,
is there. All of her is there. You can feel it.
Oliver.
Yeah, you can feel it the moment you step out. So it's just asking the
Wow.
same thing for us, and that's just inherently generous again
Mm.
for ourselves and for the world we're walking into and the people we meet. Hmm.
Those words, yeah. They actually reminded me of the experience I had yesterday when I went to Holistica here in Tulum. And I sat there having breakfast, and we sat there and we saw the rain come streaming down, like pouring down. And suddenly it was just like literally pouring down. It was just full on thunderstorm kind of
Hmm.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And it was just so beautiful at the same time. And we sat there and we talked about how in some parts of the world, even, like, we tend to cast judgment upon the weather, upon nature. And if we're doing that with the nature of casting judgment, oh, it's a gray day, oh, it's a sunny day, oh, it's raining a lot, then we might even do that with ourselves. We might even be like, we cast judgment on ourselves if we're having a stormy experience, a
Mm-hmm.
stormy season,
Mm-hmm.
or find ourselves get too attached to the sunny days, the sunny experience, and the good feeling emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like being generous with yourself, and also being generous with yourself during each season that you're in, whatever you are experiencing, whatever natural elements that are tuned up in you. Because I find that to be true too. We have like these elements, right? Water, fire, air. Help me with
Mm-hmm.
the last one.
Earth.
Earth. Earth, yes. So these can be tuned up differently depending on our seasons, whatever we're growing through. And I find that in the past, I had more of earth elements tuned up in me. Like, and also I was more into the material, into the physical. And the more that I've come back to my essence, I've become more flowy, more just basically just like water,
Mm-hmm.
just allowing and healing self and others by stepping more into who I am. And so this really depends on who you are, what season you're in, and being generous with yourself
Mm-hmm.
in that discovery,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now let's talk a little bit more about wilderness as well, because that was braving. And in relation to the wilderness, how can we apply that, right? And I already mentioned what, belonging is, and that, belonging really means that you're able to belong to yourself so fully that you also then can stand alone if you ever have to. And typically that is something that we all get to experience when we step onto the path of bravery, step onto a path that is new to us and maybe new to everyone around us that haven't seen us step onto that path before, where they
Mm-hmm.
see us as someone that we were, whereas we have a vision in our mind of someone that we're not currently yet, but we're evolving into that. That is when you get to step into the wilderness, into the jungle, into the forest of the unknown, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Brene Brown says that there will be times when standing alone feels so hard, too scary, and will doubt our ability to make our way through the uncertainty. Someone somewhere will say, don't do it. You don't have what it takes to survive the wilderness. This is when you reach deep into your wild heart and remind yourself, I am the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh yes, preach it.
Mm-hmm.
When did you discover that you are nature and that nature is you and that we are the wilderness?
Kindergarten.
I love
uh,
it.
yeah, spent a lot of time outside pretty young, being an only child, talking to fairies and dragons and just talking to animals. So pretty young, but of course,
Same.
going through life, you lose that part of yourself. Um,
Hmm.
so coming back to that was the rebirth of my path, my awakening, just the remembrance of that. But I feel we're all born into knowing
Hmm.
that, whether we actually have that word attached or
Yeah.
not. But
Hmm.
most of us are trying to remember that or coming back home to that. But I was just
Hmm.
about to say that too. It's actually less of going into the wilderness, it's going into yourself because you are the wilderness. Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You are the wilderness. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
return. It's literally just a return to
Mm-hmm.
deeper essence of yourself, a
Yeah.
depth of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of the perfectionism approach, which is out there is this goal that I have to reach in order to feel X, be X, have X, right? It's like braving the wilderness is coming back to you
Mm-hmm.
without that and accepting that. Are you able to sit in that space of not having to chase and not having to go after and this and this and this, because that actually evolves on its own when you take enough time in
Mm-hmm.
the wilderness of you, the different shadows and the trees and the weeds and the this and the that inside of you, which is kind of a
Mm-hmm.
forest, a wilderness. When you do that for quite a while, and it doesn't have to be like you're going into like this sort of like how do you say, hermit mode for like a long extended period, like a monk, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be, surely it can be, yet it's more so doing that on a regular basis, I find, because that's a habit that you then get to cultivate, and you get to connect more deeply with yourself on a regular, so that you get to check in with yourself on the regular, check in with your
Mm-hmm.
wilderness on the regular, and not
Mm-hmm.
postpone getting in touch with the wilderness to some
Mm-hmm.
future point, because the future doesn't really exist. It's
Mm-hmm.
an illusion. So it's like being able to incorporate that into our lives right here, right now, in our everyday. That's so important, I think. How
Mm-hmm.
do you connect with the wilderness more on the regular for
Mm.
yourself?
Well, like we just defined, connecting the wilderness is connecting to ourself. So any
Mm,
type of practice where I'm going into myself, going into again new aspects of myself, not just the love, light, what's good. It's going into all the aspects, every path on that forest, into the mud, but also into the trees. Um,
yes.
and then allowing, myself a break from that
Yes.
by actually going into the wilderness. So, um, the mirror of myself can show me. And I
Mm,
just need to listen. I just need to observe. I just need to watch. So by going into her, Mama Nature, seeing
yeah.
her teachers, her animals and creatures, um, I can then just have them show me as well. So I like to have a
Wow.
balance of that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That mirror is just as valuable too
Mm-hmm.
as just coming into ourselves and being by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Brene Brown also talks a lot about this, that relationships definitely are gifts to mirror us and where we're at. That's really what relationships are. They're just mirrors to where you're at. And from that point, you get to see, where are you in the wilderness right now? Do you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself in a mountaintop? Do you find yourself in a valley? Do you find yourself in the mud? Where are you on the spectrum today? Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but today. So there's constant reminders, both from our human relationships, but also animals, the nature, the environment in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Even a friend of mine just came over and was really passionate about basically the issue we have here in Tulum and in Bali, etc., with lots of plastic, right? And it's like, in order for you to begin seeing that as something to solve, like a problem that it has a solution to it, we need to have come so deeply into ourselves and have explored our wilderness that we're able to see the kind of distortedness of what's up with nature. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because only then we can use our creativity and our gifts and what we have to offer to add value and
Mm-hmm.
shift things.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you find that when you're, braving the wilderness within and without getting mirrored, etc., that contributes to your creativity too?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, it's an activation point physically,
Mm.
but the wilderness shares with us so much symbology, so much metaphor that is
Mm.
open to interpretation of what we choose to do with that. That
Mm.
it does spark creativity in that sense. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's a very subtle activation. And
Yeah.
I think because the subconscious shifts, the automatic mind, the repetitive mind, the habitual mind shifts when we are kind of exposing ourselves to metaphors or the non-directness of things. That's when it changes.
Hmm.
So that's why being in nature is so healing, and we don't really know why, right? Like how,
Yeah.
what, like where, what's the reason? You don't really
Yeah.
know. It's really magical.
She allows us to think for ourselves instead of other people telling us what to believe or think.
Yeah. And it's that mirror, that understanding that we're connected in a way. So that is something that, yeah, I recommend everyone watching to incorporate into their lives in whatever form. Just like, yeah, being in and around nature for sure, and allowing that to be a teacher, allowing that to be an activator, a mirror to where you're at, and more so than ever, just being in a quiet space, like a place where you're able to meet yourself and be with yourself.
Hmm.
That is where you will meet the wilderness.
Hmm. Yes.
It's not in the noise. It's not in
Hmm.
the noise that you're meeting the wilderness. It's not in the party typically that you're meeting a wilderness. It's
Not in the
when you,
city.
not typically, no. It's more so when you are in your own energy, or when you're in the forest or the jungle or in your own company as well, or
Hmm.
by animals, or staring into the heavens as well. So it's really beautiful this how the wilderness can show itself in so many ways and really activate us to greater understanding of ourselves as we bloom beyond perfectionism, right?
Hmm.
And now lastly too, you know, you know, basically Brené Brown again talks about how there's this connection between belonging and the wilderness. And she says that true belonging has no bunkers. So we have to step out from behind the barricades of self preservation and brave the wild. So when we're
Hmm.
braving the wilderness and face the unknown, the unseen, we come into greater belonging with ourselves and typically also others, because we don't have that armor on. We don't pretend. We don't people please. We're ourselves. And then she says, true belonging is a spiritual practice. That's it, a spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something, so you can be part of something, and standing alone in the wilderness at the same time. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are, it requires you to be who you are. And it's not passive. So true belonging is not passive. It's not the belonging that comes with just joining a group, right? It's not just going somewhere and being part of something or
Hmm.
someone. It's it's not about fitting in or selling out because it's safer. It's a practice that requires us to be vulnerable, to be uncomfortable, and to learn
Hmm.
how to be present with people without sacrificing who we are.
Hmm.
Oh, so much
Mm.
truth speaking on Brittany Brown, hey? So all of this goes to show that in order for you to brave the wilderness, perfectionism is going to be a block. So I would love to hear from you, Brianna. Have you faced perfectionism in your life? Perfectionism that's enabled you to stay vulnerable with yourself and others, prevented you from facing the uncomfort of things or the discomfort of things. Have you
Mm.
experienced perfectionism as something that's blocked you from being daring with your life and stepping into the wilderness?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, especially, I really want to talk about this, especially growing up in the States. I have two things to
Yes.
say about this. Growing up in the States, when you go into school system, that is the intention there, is to
That's
form
it.
these perfect little beings, right? These perfect little children and have perfect little grades and all that. So it's a
Yes.
important integral part to our society, which is not fixed.
Yeah.
So, being that that is still alive, brewing, although we are seeing some of the dismantling to it it still can be triggering, although I've moved past that, although a lot of us have moved past that. It's still very jarring because it is a system that lives within our country and is still alive and well. I'm speaking especially from the States.
Yeah.
But something that you also mentioned about belonging, which I cannot get out of my head, so I know I meant to speak about, also being part of the States. We are on land that doesn't belong to us, right?
Yeah.
So there's that part too. How do we feel into our connection to this wilderness within ourselves and also outside of us in our belonging when we actually don't belong to this land?
Wow.
It's really tricky. It's really tricky. So when I say give yourself patience, give yourself grace, there are moments where you will find that, but there are moments where that is going to continually be in your face, but you are called to be the person that can hopefully fix that. So don't run away with it, go right into it, and you will understand how you are meant to help be a part of changing that. Yeah, that was just really something important I need to speak about, because as much as we are going to continue to heal that, the system and the land that we're on, again, being from the States, I know it's different for some other people, but it's really intense. It's really intense. So I think the deeper that you go into this work, the easier it will be for you. And more powerful it will be for others too, as well. So if now more than ever, it is really important to be braving the wilderness and also being open to the truth of what is the matter of the fact of all that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, as you brave the wilderness, a lot of shadows expose themselves, both within yourself and society and our countries, et cetera, et cetera. And in that, there's a gift for you to begin contributing to looking at where the gaps are, to begin connecting the dots and inserting yourself as someone that can solve something or help with something or serve with something, to be able to align things a little bit, because we are nature and we're craving for things to align in some way, shape, or form. Just like nature aligns the seasons, we do too. And we get to brave the wilderness and contribute in our own ways with our unique, natural, innate qualities and gifts, etc., that we can just give and serve with, right? And absolutely, to also go back to what you mentioned about society basically setting things up so that we, from a very early age, get into a system where we're programmed literally to work like robots, behave like robots, respond or react like robots, like basically just not even robots, like workers, factory workers, just doing something that everyone else tells us to do, or someone else which we perceive authority to be telling us to do. We have been programmed for that. And that is why I see that perfectionism is such a big issue, and also a gift for us to bloom beyond, because when we're able to bloom beyond that, we have that ability to, just like you, see the unseen, see between the lines and feel between the lines. What's not right here? Like what's up here with the system, with the land, the belonging. When you can belong to yourself so deeply that you can stand alone, you're brave enough as well to face the shadows of society, right? And bring your light to it, illuminate it, and stand by it, and for something, stand for something. And understanding, actually, too, that one of the greatest rebellions that you can offer is braving the wilderness. That's it. It's that journey of braving the wilderness into yourself, and then allowing that to inspire others to brave their source of wilderness, and even enabling and activating countries and the world to transcend and bloom beyond as well.
Yeah. So it's so much bigger than you. as you can feel. It's not just for you,
Exactly.
it's
It's
for
not just
everything.
for you. Yes. So if you ever feel like it's selfish, it's egocentric, it's something like that to basically brave the wilderness, it's the exact opposite. It is. It's the exact opposite. You're actually serving yourself and others by taking time on the daily, monthly, weekly,
Hmm.
yearly to continuously check in with yourself, your values, and if you're able to brave the wilderness in your own unique way in whatever
Hmm.
area you'd like to work through.
Hmm.
And as you do, you'll see the beauty and the chaos of the wilderness. You'll
Hmm.
see that it's just as necessary as what's orderly, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
So thank you so much for this conversation on perfectionism and braving the wilderness. We've definitely had some gems come through and come up that I really, truly hope has hit land for a lot of those who've been watching and also watched the replay. I will upload this on my profile as well so you can see the whole thing there. And where can people find you and look up more of what you're about and what it is that you're offering of service to the world?
Yep, you can find me pretty much everywhere. YouTube, my website here,
Mm,
Briona Jolie, Brionajole. Yeah,
yes.
go explore because I have built a wilderness for people to explore in pretty much. So, yep.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I think that we have that in common. And I think that those who have dared and still continue to dare, this is something we do, every single one of us on the daily, right? But when we do, it's as if, yeah, when we create the wilderness and brave the wilderness within ourselves and get in touch with that, we're inspired to help others dare to take that path as well, or find their own path, really. That's really
Hmm.
what it's about. But we can, both you and I, we support in our own ways with our own unique vibrations and qualities and ways of looking at things and modalities to support you all in choosing to brave the wilderness and choosing bravery in your life.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, that is what most people regret not having with their lives. Right. So we want to
Hmm.
make sure that we embrace that to the
Hmm.
fullest. So you can learn more about Bloom Beyond Tribe, Bloom Beyond Perfectionism, Bloom Beyond Mastermind, and the Bloom Beyond 101 coaching, and the link in the description of mine. And also, absolutely go ahead and follow Briona's awesome work as well. And I'm so excited to connect further with you and follow your journey further too, Briona. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.